Today we're going to be taking a look at immigration-related arrests in North Florida, but we're also going to be comparing the crimes that immigrants commit to the crimes that U.S. citizens commit. As we know, the southern part of Florida has a lot of Hispanics, but in North Florida you have considerably less. I want to start today's video in Clay County, Florida. This is a suburban rural area right outside of Jacksonville. This white man in Clay County, Florida was arrested for a murder. Not premeditated of the second degree, he had a $100,000 bond. Less than 2 weeks later, in the same county, this African-American male with a suspended driver's license was driving and he caused the death or serious injury to another person. His bond was set at 7 times higher, at $750,000. Do you guys see something wrong with this picture? I want to make another comparison before we move forward with today's video. This perverted Hispanic 81-year-old man was charged with some horrific crimes, victim under 12. His bond totaled more than $1.5 million. In Elmore County, Alabama, a man was charged with similar types of crimes. His victim was not listed as being under 12, but it could have been. I'm not sure how the charges work in Alabama. It lists here that the victim was related to him. So we're talking about a little Alabama roll tide. Now his bond was $167,000. We're not going to get into the details because they practically committed about the same type of crime. One of the worst crimes anybody could commit. But you can see that in Florida, the law looked at the same crime with about 10 times more seriousness when it came to the bond hearing. This is where you really can see how states have their priorities whacked up. In Alabama, hurting somebody like that isn't really looked at as that bad of a thing. In Florida, it's considered much more serious. However, also in the state of Florida, a white person committing a murder isn't looked at the same way as a black person accidentally hurting somebody. Clearly, the legal system in this country is a complete mess. It doesn't exactly judge everybody fairly. However, also in Elmore County, Alabama, a Mexican was arrested for trafficking and he received a $3 million bail. So this should just give you an idea of how screwed up the legal system is in the United States, where a Mexican person trafficking gets a $3 million bail while somebody hurting children gets a $167,000 bail. A white person commits a murder, they get a $100,000 bail. A black person accidentally hurt somebody while driving with a suspended license, and his bond is 7 times heavier. Just so you guys can understand exactly how screwed up the legal system in this country is. Now back to Clay County, Florida, a Hispanic male was arrested for no valid driver's license and he has a $1,000 bail. Now assuming he doesn't have a valid driver's license, he may be illegal. Looking at his photo, he could be Cuban, Mexican, or Venezuelan. It's really hard to tell. It doesn't seem like there's an overwhelming number of Hispanics being arrested for no valid driver's license in this part of Florida, rural Clay County, but it never ceases to amaze me every time I look at these rural counties in Florida, the type of misappropriations and racial discriminations that are clearly blatantly out in the open when you look through arrest records. These rural counties in Florida are really a disgrace when it comes to law and order. While interviewing homeless people in Jacksonville, Florida, right on the Duval-Clay County line, I met a few homeless people who told me that they're originally from Clay County, but the sheriff's office has been threatening them, destroying their property and intimidating them, so they decided to move into Duval County to get away from the persecution on the homeless in this county. So this is a county that clearly has a very bad reputation when it comes to law enforcement. We have a YouTube subscriber that lives in Clay County, Florida, and he's always commenting, telling me about all the horrors he experiences living in this county. It seems like this is really a good old boy system where they do whatever they want. But when it comes to catching people driving without a valid driver's license, the issue that many of these Florida counties have is even if they catch any illegal driving with no valid driver's license and arrest them, that doesn't exactly guarantee that they're going to be able to deport that person. Many times, just like this individual in Clay County, they're able to bond out. What I've been able to notice while looking through these arrest records in Florida regarding immigration is that counties like Collier, Sarasota, kind of like the more affluent coastal counties, are more easily enabled to get those detention holds and have people shipped over to ICE. But when it comes to these rural counties in Florida, the amount of ICE detentions that they're able to transfer seems to be considerably less than other counties that have more political pull. And frankly, some of these rural counties that are just overwhelmed with crime, their jail capacity is limited and they're not able to really target people for no valid driver's license charges because their jails are packed with real dangerous criminals, and the officers simply do not have the capacity to focus on low-level crimes like immigration-related arrests when they have more serious criminals to go after in their community. So while it's the rural counties in Florida that would like to see the implementation of immigration and ICE detentions, it's actually the urban counties that have the capacity to actually make these detentions because they have more resources available. You would think that with the reputation that these North Florida counties have and the general sentiment of the public in North Florida being much stronger against illegal immigration than in South Florida, that there would be more detentions and arrests for this purpose in the northern part of the state. However, I'm actually finding that in these counties, law enforcement is overwhelmed with real dangerous criminals. Keep in mind that in North Florida, the drug overdose death rates and the crime rates, homicide rates are all significantly higher than South Florida. Thus, the law enforcement agencies here are really concerned with actual criminals. At a superficial glance, you would think that there would be much more ICE detentions in the northern part of the state, noted for their sentiment against immigrants. However, the reality is that the southern half of the state is being more proactive in making these arrests since they have better jail facilities, more jail space, and of course, much better law enforcement agencies that are more equipped to actually go after the crimes that the state wants them to go after. So what's happening in Florida is, despite the fact that the sentiment in the northern half of the state is more anti-immigrant, their law enforcement agencies are so tied up with dangerous criminals that they're not even able to go after illegal immigrants. They don't have the jail capacity. They don't have the resources. Perfect example, Hernando County. This is an area just north of Tampa that's along the coast. You have Brooksville, Spring Hill, Ridge Manor, Weeki Wachee. It's just kind of a semi-rural county. Many people in Spring Hill commute to Tampa, Florida along US 19 or along the Veterans or 75. Being a commuter community to Tampa, you would think that immigration arrests here would be off the chains, but they're really not. Interestingly enough, in Hernando County, Florida, there are more people being arrested without a valid driver's license that are US citizens versus illegals. Meet Jason. He was arrested just 3 days ago for driving with a suspended revoked driver's license knowingly. He is clearly an American U.S. citizen, but he's getting charged of a crime that normally takes place with illegals. The following day, Pablo was arrested for having no driver's license, but I think we all understand why he doesn't have that. If Pablo had the opportunity to have a driver's license, I'm sure he wouldn't have it suspended or revoked. He'd be busy going to work. Now, if this arrest of Pablo had happened here in Sarasota County, he would instantly have an immigration hold most likely, or he would get an immigration hold right after the arrest. The issue with Hernando County is that there are so many people getting caught up with so many crimes in this county that it's likely the law enforcement here just doesn't have the time or ability to focus on detaining people for ICE. And I guess the craziest thing about looking through these Hernando County arrest records is coming to the realization that for every one illegal arrested with no valid driver's license, there's about 10 U.S. citizens committing the same crime. Vice versa, if you were to go to Collier County, Florida, like down in Naples on the southern part of the state, the ratio would be like 60 illegals per every one U.S. citizen. So it seems like U.S. citizens in Hernando, Florida just can't get their crap together with simple things like getting their driver's license. In Naples, Florida, for example, you would spend hours scrolling through arrest records to find one U.S. citizen arrested for no valid driver's license. But here in this county, it's completely rampant. I'm going to believe that the overwhelming majority of them are just irresponsible or have their licenses revoked or suspended for a DUI. Just 2 days ago, David James was arrested in Hernando County for driving with a suspended or revoked driver's license knowingly. On this particular day, there were 2 other U.S. citizens that were arrested for the same charge, driving with a suspended driver's license knowingly. Now, for some reason, they didn't post their photos online, but they did list the charges. So just on 3/16/2025, the number of American citizens arrested for no valid driver's license outnumbered illegals like 4-1. Just last Friday, Cedric was arrested in Hernando County for driving without a valid driver's license for the 3rd or subsequent time. It seems crazy to believe that in northern Florida there are more U.S. citizens arrested for not having a valid driver's license than there are illegals. That didn't include Alex Martin's photo, but he was also arrested for no valid driver's license on Friday. So you can see the trend here in this part of the state. It's not illegals who are driving without a valid driver's license, it's the Americans. If you've been watching our series about immigration arrests in Florida, you may remember that the overwhelming majority of people who are arrested as illegal immigrants are charged with no valid driver's license. Every once in a while, one of them gets arrested for a violent crime, but for the most part, most people that are undocumented being arrested in Florida are facing 2 charges. 1, driving without a valid driver's license, or 2, an immigration hold that's court-ordered. Meet the homie Gilberto. He was arrested for having his valid driver's license expired more than 6 months ago. This is a charge that would indicate that maybe he's overstaying a visa. And you know, considering the quality of good women that exist in Hernando County, Florida, I can see why he overstayed his visa. Good specimens of white women like Caitlin, who is being arrested for not paying child support. Let that be a lesson to you, Katie, that if I get pregnant, you're not just going to be able to run away from it. Well, really, it's a contempt of court for child support. So she was probably in the courtroom doing some baby mama drama, and the judge was like, okay, Caitlin, you know what? You're going to jail. This white woman right here in Hernando County was arrested for domestic battery. Now, they didn't list her weight class, but she sure looks like she could put up a good fight. Not going to lie, Caitlin's probably in there hand washing her underwear because she definitely looks like a demanding inmate. She wasn't afraid of her husband. She sure ain't gonna be afraid of Caitlin. Meet Theodore Travis Glenn. He didn't have a driver's license. Man. Clearly, there are way too many white people in this county who don't have a driver's license. I wonder if we could deport them all. Joshua Ray knew his driver's license was suspended, but he still drove. He knew that neck tattoo was a bad idea, but he still got it. Meet Felicia. Bye, Felicia. She had a suspended driver's license and she was deported back to Alabama. Meet David John. His driver's license was permanently revoked, but guess what he was doing? That's right, he was driving a vehicle either way. If you're not allowed to drive, you can't do it. These are the types of problems you would expect a Guatemalan woman to have, not a white guy. This is the type of dude you see on Facebook making racist comments about Hispanics. Deep down, his real anger is that he's not allowed to drive while some Hispanics are. It seems like it was almost a waste of time trying to find Hispanics that were arrested in Hernando County for not having a valid driver's license, since most of them... Is that John right there? Yeah, that's John right there. So at least in this particular county, it's the white guys that are having to walk on the side of the road while the Hispanics drive by. You would think that this county would have a lot of Hispanics being detained and being put on that immigration ICE hold, but it really isn't the case. And I really have to admit, it's kind of pathetic to live in the United States as a U.S. citizen and being charged as a Guatemalan. It's kind of a regional abnormality here in Hernando County that we have discovered due to my research. So next time you're driving through Hernando County, Florida, just remember that a lot of these people don't have a valid driver's license. And if you see how bad they drive, it's understandable. If I had to take an educated guess on what's happening in Hernando County, Florida, I would have to assume that most of these people were under consumption issues, DUIs, or taking other illegal substances, and ended up getting a DUI and having their driver's license suspended. After all, Hernando County is one of the highest overdose death rate counties in Florida, So it's possible that the combination of irresponsibility with consumption has led to the situation where many of these people are living in a rural community in the middle of nowhere and having to go for a long walk on a country road because you don't have a valid driver's license. All right, so let's hop on over to Marion County, Florida. This is where the city of Ocala sits. What's notable about Ocala, Florida is how ugly their inmates are. Other than white people who look like they crawled out of a sewer, the next largest group here is Puerto Ricans. Now, Puerto Ricans are U.S. born citizens, so they are not deportable, but there are other Latino communities here who are engaging in crimery. Gonzalo Reyes de la Cruz was arrested in Marion County, Florida with a charge of a courtesy hold for Border Patrol. I had never heard that term before. Now, this is the type of charge where a regular law enforcement agency detains somebody who's not committing a crime and holds them for immigration. In Ocala County, Florida, I requested a Freedom of Information Act request about an individual who was in the same situation, and they denied the request. So what's happening now in Florida is that many of these sheriff's offices where you have the least transparency, if it's the city police station, you can usually get the body cam footage quicker, but if it's the county sheriff's office, you're talking months or years before you can get these requests sent out to you. So there's not a lot of transparency with these types of situations. But basically, by the time there were to be a video produced, the person would have already been deported, so it would be useless. But the issue with these types of detentions are that you have somebody who's not committing a crime, somebody who's just minding their own business, and then they get snatched up by a sheriff's office. Now, it isn't every agency in Florida that's doing this. Who is doing this? Marion, Collier, Polk County. Just a few counties are trying to flex their muscle by doing these types of detentions. But the reality is that when you're getting a detention from the sheriff's office versus a city police department, the chances of you getting a Freedom of Information Act request brought back to you promptly so you can understand what's happening would be irrelevant. Now, I could try to get this footage for you guys, but I don't think we're going to get it. So what a lot of people really don't understand is a lot of these new laws and new practices that are taking place in the state of Florida are done by agencies that don't have a lot of transparency. The agencies where there's quick transparency, they're not going to go ahead and just start detaining people randomly that haven't committed a crime. In fact, even Grady Judd made a press conference where he specifically said that they were not going to go after people who were not breaking the law, but they've already broken that promise. Not gonna lie, this guy doesn't look like a bad person. He has a good complexion, he's shaved, he looks like he's well kept. He doesn't look like a piece of crap to me. If you dropped your wallet in front of these three individuals, which one do you think would have the best probability of returning your wallet if there was money in it? One white girl had fraud, the other one had resisting officer with battery, and then the guy with the immigration border detention. And by the way, in Ocala, Florida, you run into guys like this dude right here. Now, he's a Romanian. He might be like a gypsy. I'm not sure if he's a citizen of Spain or Romania, but you have these people that go around scamming people at gas stations. I wish they would arrest and deport those people. Seems like you can't get off on an exit in the Ocala area without having these scamming gypsy people trying to tell you some sob story about how their car broke down with little kids in the backseat. In the Ocala area, this 58-year-old Asian woman was arrested for offering her services to the community. Now, I don't know who would pay for a 58-year-old Chinese woman, but apparently that's something people are paying for out there. Sure, they arrest the person who's doing this, but do they look into how she came into the country, who brought her here? Was it a work visa? There's got to be more in the background of why this Asian woman is here in the United States engaging in this type of, behavior. She could have gone to Tijuana where it's legal, but she decided to go to Ocala where it's not. Or maybe she didn't even have a choice. Like, there's definitely more to this than just an arrest. I think they need to do more research into cases like this and try to understand what's really going on with these individuals that get arrested for these type of charges. This isn't just one individual person doing this. I can guarantee you this is part of a network. Marion County arrested a 20-year-old Guatemalan for no valid driver's license. With as many people that we have in this country begging to use money for drugs, to go after people like this guy that are just trying to work for us in society seems like a complete freaking loss. Take a real close look at these individuals. They're taking a huge loss by getting rid of these people. It's not hard to tell when you're dealing with somebody of work ethic, good presentation, good clean shave, just well presented, hardworking people. And when you're dealing with a piece of crap, you're going after people that your community probably needs. There are so many elderly people in the Ocala area that need affordable work done around their properties, and the locals don't want to do crap. If they get a chance to work for somebody, half the time they run off with the money or use the money to get high with and don't finish the job, and then they're going after the people that are actually helping their community. I think they're taking a huge freaking loss in Marion County with these arrests. You ever see somebody do something really stupid and you know it's really stupid, but you just gotta kind of let them do it and see how it works out for them? This is one of those scenarios where you can clearly tell something wrong's being done and the person doing it just can't figure it out. If you went to Ocala right now and you wanted to find people, bad people, doing bad things, it wouldn't be hard to pick them off and find individuals engaging in really detrimental activities. But here they are going after two dudes that are working, trying to take care of their families and trying to take care of us. Because to be honest, in the Ocala area, there are not too many young people willing to work. Most of them are just strung out on drugs. They're unemployed. They're stealing. They're scamming. All they are is looking for their next hit. And then you go after the people that are working. Total loss here. I mean, it's hard to believe that somebody could be so blind not to see the mistake they're making. They're seriously taking a loss by going after these hardworking people. And you know what? Wherever these guys go, you can just look at them and know they're going to be okay wherever they end up. But I don't know what's going to happen to us here in the United States, a country where we're getting rid of the good, hardworking people, and the people that are doing all the bad things have complete impunity. You know, I don't feel bad for them. They're going to be all right wherever they go. I'm worried about us here in the United States. What's going to happen to us here? Because, you know, when you get rid of good people and you give bad people a pass, you don't really create great conditions. In Ocala, Florida, I know a lot of people have moved to this crap hole thinking that it's affordable. I would rather be homeless in South Florida than in a house in Ocala. Ocala gives me the worst vibes ever. It's just a really depressed, beat-up town. The only people really doing anything in Ocala are the Spanish people that are moving here, starting businesses, looking for affordability. But when you look at the local community here, they ain't doing crap with themselves. Nassau County, Florida sits on the north side of Jacksonville, between Jacksonville and Georgia. On the west side of the county, it's mostly rural areas, and then on the east side, it's beautiful coastal communities, kind of reminiscent of what you would find like along the Carolina or Georgia coast. It's just beautiful, charming coastal communities. 20-year-old, no driver's license that's valid. Now this individual here, you can tell just by his mugshot, a whole different complexion. He looks like the type that would have had a better education. You guys know Guatemalans don't really get a good education. I think this young man knows better than to drive without a valid driver's license. If I had to take a guess on his nationality, I think he might be Venezuelan, but I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure he knew exactly what he was doing driving without a valid driver's license. It also mentions that he's 6 foot tall. That's kind of why I'm leaning towards I think he's Venezuelan. I can't tell you I feel sympathetic for him. He's kind of a white complexion, 6 foot tall. He could have very easily gotten Uber or figured out something better to do. Guessing that he's in the Jacksonville area, I'm going to assume he's Venezuelan. Now, Venezuelans, they're more familiar with technology. They're just a little bit better educated. He knew better than to do this. In the case of the Guatemalan working construction over there in Ocala, totally different scenario. This is a young kid in the Jacksonville metro area. He knew what he was doing, and he seems like he doesn't care by his mugshot. Now, the real issue for all of these agencies is whether they arrest them for no valid driver's license or not. A lot of times they have to bail them out because they don't have jail time facilities there where they can lock people up indefinitely waiting for ICE to get around to pick them up, and they have to release them. They can't get the ICE immigration holds. A lot of times they arrest them, they get bailed out, and then like 2 weeks later ICE goes and catches them at their location when they're able to secure the ICE immigration hold. But to be honest with you, it seems like for the most part, it's not very proactive when it comes to immigration in these North Florida counties. So these kids are both the same age and they have the same crime. Why would I think there's a difference between one and the other? I think it comes down to propensity to delinquency. When you look at the young Guatemalan, is he propense to engage in criminal activity? When you look at the one on the right, the younger kid, the Venezuelan probably, Is he propense to work or is he propense to engage in criminal activities? He'd probably lean more towards criminal activity than he would to working. And you think about this for a minute. Now, this young kid, his demographic is a little bit wider. He's probably going to be a little bit more, fluent to move through society. The Guatemalan, he has to work and just kind of keep it under a low profile. This kid on the right, 6 foot tall Venezuelan white kid, probably coming from a more educated background. He's going to feel more Americanized. He's going to be listening to Gucci Mane. He's going to be out there smoking and stuff. And, he might even want to join a gang and try, all that crap. He's going to be more inclined to acclimate culturally in a bad way. But the other kid, all he's going to do is work and take care of his family. I can guarantee you the one on the left has kids and the one on the right probably doesn't. So same age, same crime. They're probably both here undocumented, but one of them is more likely to work and contribute to society than the other. And if you think I'm being prejudiced with my assumption, I have lived in South Florida and I know both of these groups very well. And I have to say, if I had to compare a Venezuelan youth to a Guatemalan youth, I know the Guatemalan youth is going to be working and the Venezuelan youth is unfortunately going to be leaning towards delinquency. From my experience, the Guatemalan youths are so busy working and providing for their families that they don't have time to think what's on the radio. Now, I'm very familiar with Guatemalans. I lived in Fort Myers. We have a huge Guatemalan community, and all I ever seen them people do is work. Now, I live in Sarasota. We have a lot of Venezuelans here, and I see what the young Venezuelan kids are up to, and I don't see this being a good, positive contribution to my community. I certainly don't feel anything for them because I see the vast majority of them, the type of things they do. Like, I get them on Uber. A lot of times they're smoking, they're vaping. I hear the music they're listening to, the cultures that they're drawn to. It's all crime and delinquency. And I'm just being fair on this. I'm not trying to be prejudiced, but it's the reality that for the most part, the Venezuelan youth just acclimates really bad in the United States and not in a good way. Uber driving in the Sarasota area, I get both Guatemalans and Venezuelans that are undocumented as passengers. The Guatemalans are humble, they're quiet, they're respectful. The Venezuelan kids are downright arrogant. And I'm like, dude, you can't be arrogant. You're not even here legally. So what makes you think you can be arrogant, disrespectful, or inconsiderate to other people? So it's just a culture of arrogance that isn't appreciated when you're on somebody's land that isn't yours uninvited. You're in somebody else's country and you're illegal, you have to have a certain way that you move. Respect, dignity, humility, all that has to come into play because you're not even supposed to be here. And I think Guatemalans, for the most part, understand their place and they kind of play their role quietly and make their money, and they're not out there being arrogant or anything like that. But with the Venezuelans, like, dude, you're here illegally. What makes you think that you can move like this when you know you're illegal? So it's a level of arrogance that really doesn't garnish a lot of respect. Two completely different countries with different cultures. Now, everybody's story is different. I can see why a lot of people are leaving Venezuela, but you have to understand that now that you're here in the United States, it's not your country, you got to move a certain way. And if you're not from here and you're undocumented, you can't be out here acting a fool. You know how these white racist cops are and how they stand on certain subcultures. So if you're over here wearing Jordans and listening to rap music, off the whip, you're not going to fall on their good side. So it's kind of like the way you carry yourself makes a huge impression about how other people perceive you. And my perception of Venezuelan youth is that because that's what I've met. In the case of Guatemalans, I have to say that overwhelmingly the ones that I've met are just working to take care of their families. And they're very respectful, humble, know their place. All that makes you feel kind of more sympathetic for them because yeah, they're here illegally, but at the same time, they're not bad intentioned. But when somebody's illegally in your country, and then on top of it, they have a complete disregard for law and order, a complete arrogance towards other people's cultures and sensibilities, who the crap is going to appreciate you when you're moving like that? Lake County, Florida is on the outskirts of Orlando. This young Guatemalan woman decided to drive without a valid driver's license, and it was a bad idea. Lake County, Florida, 70 years old, suspended driver's license, not a U.S. citizen. Lake County, Florida specifically mentions yes or no for U.S. citizen on their arrest page. I think that's a great idea. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I think more counties should list not only if they're a U.S. citizen or not, but their nationality. A few counties like Lake County, Sarasota County, and Charlotte County do that. I think it's a practice that more law enforcement agencies need to do. When they arrest somebody, if they're not from the United States or if they're not U.S. citizens, That should be listed on the arrest record. People need to know this information. In the case of a 70-year-old in Lake County, Florida, with a suspended driver's license who's not a U.S. citizen, I don't think because of his age is going to be a priority to extradite this person back to their homeland. So, yes, he's not a U.S. citizen. Is he going to get deported? I don't think this guy at 70 years old is going to be a priority. Kevin Dominguez Carrillo, maybe Mexican, maybe Guatemalan, not a U.S. citizen, no valid driver's license, arrested in Lake County, Florida. I did not see an immigration hold on him. And again, most of these counties in North Florida simply do not have the resources, space, time, or connections to get these people deported. Eventually, I do believe that many of these people that are arrested and released will eventually get picked up by ICE, but priority right now at the top of the list, probably not. Now, Lake County, Florida isn't known as a bad county. It's kind of on the edge of rural Florida and urban Orlando, kind of somewhere in the middle of suburbia and rural Florida. It's not known as a bad place to live. It's actually got pretty nice areas. This isn't this crime-ridden, out-of-control rural county like other places. Sure, it's got its little places out in the woods that are pretty bad, but it's also got a lot of nice growth in suburban areas. So Lake County isn't as lawless and out of control as some of these other Florida counties. It's kind of a little bit more of a desirable rural county. So if you're looking to live in rural north central Florida, Lake County offers kind of a more decent environment, kind of less crackheady. There are still homeless people here. There are still rough spots, don't get me wrong, but it isn't as bad as some of these surrounding counties like Pasco, Polk, Hernando, Citrus. You get the idea. It's a little bit better. Groveland, Florida is a nice little town outside of Orlando. This individual, not only did he not have a valid driver's license, but he was also under the influence. Now look, you can kind of overlook not having a valid driver's license because you're trying to get to work. But when an individual who has no valid driver's license decides that he's going to also on top of that drink, you're showing a huge disregard for the privilege that you kind of don't already have to drive. These types of individuals will never acclimate to life in the United States. It's an absolute waste of time to dedicate anything other than a plane ticket back to their home country for individuals who think that they're going to get behind the wheel of a car even though they don't have a driver's license, and then on top of that they're also going to drink and drive. There's no cure for this guy other than a deportation. Alright guys, so those are immigration related arrests in North Florida. Really the only person I really found with an actual immigration arrest was the person with the Border Patrol courtesy hold. If Border Patrol asks their local agencies to detain this guy for them, this guy will be deported. Now, if the agency arrested him and charged him with a Border Patrol hold, and Border Patrol is not interested in picking him up, they're going to have to release him. I don't know what they're doing in Marion County, Florida. I think they should be worried more about the fact that their overdose death rate is 6 times higher than Miami. Their homicide rate's now higher than Miami. So when you're a rural county but your crime analytics are higher than urban cities, you need to be focusing on more serious crimes, not on detaining somebody for Border Patrol. Many of these rural counties in north central Florida do not publish their arrest records, or if they publish them, they make it so complicated that it's not worth scrolling through their system. They want you to know the name of the person that's being arrested. In other words, they don't want you to know who's in their county jails. Probably nothing raises more red flags than lack of transparency. So for these agencies that don't publish arrest records, if you make a Freedom of Information Act request, they deny it. Those statements are already speaking for themselves, and that they don't want to show accountability for their behavior. In the case of North Florida, you have higher crime rates, you have more lawlessness, you have higher overdose death rates, you have law enforcement agencies that are very incompetent. And you can see even the individuals that live in these counties where even though they're U.S. citizens, they're more propense to not have a driver's license than somebody who is illegal. That's freaking pathetic that people from other countries are more likely to have a valid driver's license than you. People here are just irresponsible, and well, their lifestyles show that. It seems very improbable that these counties in North Florida that already have jails packed with homeless people and drug addicts are also going to be able to make room for undocumented people. I'm sure if you've been watching my series on immigration in Florida, you would probably agree with me on the fact that the southern half of the state is being more proactive and successful in immigration arrest. I'll continue to work hard keeping you guys posted on immigration arrests in Florida as this scenario unfolds, but keep in mind that many of these law enforcement agencies do not publish their arrest records. ICE and Immigrations offers zero help, information, or even a call back or reply to an email. Whatever they're doing, they want to do it in secrecy. So we have to rely on law enforcement agencies that publish their ICE detention holds to know who these agencies are transferring to the hands of ICE. We're going to assume that for the most part, when immigration raids do start to take place in Florida, that we're not going to get any type of information of who is being arrested. If it wasn't for the agencies that publish these immigration holds, we really wouldn't know what they're up to. And probably they don't want you to know what they're up to begin with. It seems like much of these rural counties where the residents would like to see immigration raids don't have law enforcement agencies that are equipped, trained, or proactive enough to successfully carry out these operations. In fact, I wouldn't doubt that their incompetence would lead to more legal issues for them, like lawsuits for detaining the wrong people. Since they're moving so recklessly with so little lack of transparency, the propensity for them to do something wrong, like detaining somebody they're not supposed to, seems extensively high. And a lot of people have no problem putting themselves in that predicament of not identifying themselves, hoping that they get deported even though they weren't supposed to get deported. So there's no real telling with the incompetence and lack of transparency that these agencies in this part of the state have exactly what type of scenarios are actually unfolding on the ground. All right, guys, so that is the situation in Florida right now. Overall, I would have to say that it doesn't seem like these law enforcement agencies in this region of the state are doing very much, and what they are doing doesn't seem very impactful.